All right, y'all, we made it to the end. We are setting up our practice. We've gone through all the steps. We have committed to ourselves. We have created rituals. We've assigned colors we want to use. We have reflected on 2021. We've named the values that we want to take with us into the year. We've brainstormed hustle, play, push, move. What does this mean? We've thought about how this is going to plug into all the different months of the year. We've mapped out and visualized the season and the month of January. And now we're here. We are ready to do the entire week. First week, we're getting into it, right? The weekly grid is probably what you've seen the most. This is what you're going to come back to the most, in addition to the weekly reflections. Like, those are the pages that you're just going to see over and over and over again throughout the year. That repetition is what is going to teach us the most about our choices, who we are, where we're going. This weekly grid is your friend, even though I know it's a little intimidating at first. So I will do videos on all the specific components in their own way. But I do want to just very quickly talk through the order of operations, okay? Because that matters. And just, we'll start there. So there's extra layers. This top layer is for the weather. And if you read your instruction pages, you know that we do the weather because it's important. Like, what's happening with the weather outside affects our energy, affects our choices, and it also gets us started. You can't make any choices about the weather. The weather is decided. So when you sit down, you pull out your weather app on your phone or whatever you use and just start there, right? The weather. I'd like to draw little clouds and suns because I think it's fun, and I think most people do. And we just start there. And from there, once we have started, we're probably going to keep going, right? And that's our goal. Always want to just start. Let me open the book, let me pull out my pen, let me write one thing. And you'd be surprised at how often that leads to finishing it. And finishing it means whatever you want it to. So that doesn't mean there can be empty boxes or anything. It just means we're going to start and we're going to get some new information and we're going to keep it pushing. So you always want to start with the weather, and then you take out your calendar is open. I use Google Calendar, whatever you use, paper, electronic, whatever. And you're going to plug in what's already in the calendar here in your grid. So this is not linear. It's not like Monday fill it up, Tuesday fill it up. That's not what we're doing. We're going to look at the whole week and say, okay, I have an appointment on Monday. I have meetings sprinkled throughout the week. Okay, and what categories do they fall under? I have dinner with a friend this day, or I'm going for a run on that day, and you plug it all in this smattering, right? Once that step is done, I want you to pause. Then I want you to ask yourself if anything that you see can go to multiple categories. So often for me, a lot of my move is also play. Some of my move is also push. A lot of times hustle and push overlap. A lot of times play and push overlap. You get it. So in a prior video, we talked about this a little bit, but we like those things. Things that overlap categories are wonderful because we understand that whatever that thing is probably very important to us. So that step of pausing and pulling things across categories is important, very important. And then the final step is to see the empty boxes and visualize into how that might get filled that day, given what's already there, right? So if you have 5 meetings and the kids need to be dropped off and taken here and there, you're probably not going to try the workout class across town that day, right? But how could you move your body given all of those factors? And it's raining or something. You know, how could you move your body given all of those factors? Maybe it's just going to be a quick walk in between A and B. And guess what? On that day, you're going to see that coming and you're actually going to take that walk because you know if you don't, you're not going to get anything in that day because it's just too busy, right? Conversely, a couple of days later, there's a lot less on your plate. The weather is better. Oh, maybe I'll take a hike that day because I have a few hours. And you know, you'll actually do it because you're going to look forward to it. You'll know that the weather's only good enough on that day. If you don't do it, it's going to be miserable the other days, etc., etc., etc. You start that step of filling in the emptiness is where we just start visualizing in a new way. These are the things that your electronic or your paper planner, they don't tell you, they just tell you hours in the day, but this is going to start telling you so much more about how you may or may not feel as these obligations and choices start to take shape. So we'll do our best to kind of fill in those empty boxes. Now, this bottom row, gratitude, stays empty, okay? This we do daily throughout the week, if we can, okay? If you are brand new, this is your first book, please do not expect yourself to do this every day or even every week. That's not how we learn. That's not realistic. So I really do want you to focus on the weekly ritual. That is the most important. If you can get to this once a week for about 30 to 45 minutes, that will change your life. But the daily part, you know, it's great. It's icing on the cake, but it's less important. Okay. So we're still in the weekly ritual part. So that bottom row is going to stay empty. And throughout the week, we're going to try and remember to open our books, take a look at what's going on, and fill out some gratitude. That's what that bottom row is for. When our grid is complete, or how we feel complete, that is when we want to look here, set some weekly goals like, okay, so given what's going on, now I have a grid that's a lot more holistic, a lot more representative of all the things that I'm interested in. Then you're going to set some goals. And that may be all work related. Doesn't matter. There's no measurement of, you know, we're not going to come back and judge ourselves about this, but perhaps there's something that you would like to make sure gets done this week. Ideally, you would want goals that represent different parts of your life. So, you know, maybe there's a work related, but there's also play related. There's maybe some other kind of goal that hits different parts of you, but maybe they're all work related. Who knows? It's up to you. These reminders are for you to do whatever you want with. I use them. I write my manifestation values there just because I like to see them all the time. I also write just random things that are on my mind, like I need to get a bookshelf and I need to go to the dentist, but I'm probably not going to do it this week. I just don't want to forget. And so it seems to work pretty well. Eventually I get to those things. That's how I use it. Other people use it. Maybe there's an affirmation you're working with. Maybe you want to put your values there as well. There's lots, you know, that's your little free space. Last part of the week is your habit key, okay? And I'll do a whole video on habits. There's a lot to talk about with habits. James Clear is a wonderful expert on this. He has a book called Atomic Habits. He has a great Instagram account to follow. But essentially, when we are functioning in the world every single day, we are a composite of a bunch of habits. When we wake up, what we do after we wake up, you know, what's our breakfast, what's our lunch, you know, a million different little things. And so this framework, our framework, asks you every month to think about a target habit. And that goes right here in this box, and also, again, right here. And your target habit is something that you are wanting to focus on, either shift, improve, or remove from your life, okay? and you're going to measure whether or not you do it, or however you want to measure your habits in these in-between spaces here, okay? So habits, my target habit right now, for example, is social media hygiene, okay? I'm thinking about what I'm consuming when I'm scrolling. And that was I landed there because, I was trying to get a hold of screen time and that wasn't really working. And so I'm like, well, what is it about when I'm on screens? Like, what am I really trying to measure? And it's like, am I looking at stuff that makes me feel good, or am I looking at stuff that makes me compare, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm trying to measure my social media hygiene. And I give myself a little happy face if I do good with it, a little medium face if I dip one way or another. Other habits I measure are whether or not I poop. That's my famous one that I always talk about. How much water I drink, how many minutes I spend moving, whether or not I meditated. I have a puppy that I'm training, so I'm, measuring, did I spend time doing that with him? How much sleep I get. Now I have worked my way up to measuring, probably 9 or 10 habits a day. I don't advise that at all if you're new, okay? If you're new, I actually advise you to skip this part altogether. And it is the part that actually a lot of folks go to first, because they're like, oh, I already know I need to exercise 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Like, I'll just measure that. And that is the reason why I haven't ever done it. And I want to caution you against that, because habit tracking, A, is not for everyone. Some people, it's just probably not the best way to go ever. But B, it can be very shaming, right? So just because you write it down here to track it, doesn't really address underlying reasons why we may or may not do it, okay? And part of the framework is working our way up to having a neutral relationship to this idea of measuring and assessment. And a lot of us are conditioned, especially when we're starting, that either I pass or I fail at things. And habits can be like a very quick little train to fail. So be careful there. That's all I'm saying. If you feel like you have a pretty healthy relationship to this idea, and you're like, okay, I'm not here to shame myself, I really do just want the information, great, go for it. But that's what habits are. And if you're not sure and you're like, I don't know, this just feels like a lot, just wait 3 or 4 months and then start playing with the habit part of the framework, okay? So when you're done to start the week, you should have the whole grid pretty much filled out to some as best you can, right? So you're probably going to have some empty boxes in the beginning. It's fine. This bottom row is going to be empty. You'll have some goals here, maybe some reminders here, and maybe some habits here, okay? By the end of the week, maybe there's some gratitude that's filled out. Maybe you're tracking some habits, and your grid will be a little bit more full. And then at the end of the week, you'll turn the page and you'll do your weekly reflection, and you'll do the next week, right? There's a blank page here for whatever you want. If you want to make notes, if you want to, this is often where I'll make to-do lists or just random stuff. But yeah, that's how we do the weekly grid. And we're going to do it again, like I said, again and again and again. Oh, I know. I was like, there's one thing else I wanted to say. You'll notice the designs on the edges. This is not on accident. All the weeks have little designs that are seasonally aligned. And I encourage you to color and make the background fun and playful. I'll show you last year's book of some not ideas, but just like you can see, like when it's filled out, and you'll see I'm not perfect at it. Having this color is really fun. And I love flipping through these pages and looking back and seeing, you know, this is what my habits were doing, this is my gratitude. And again, it's not about being perfect, because that's not a thing. But when we can, we want to get into it. And the more we do it, the more we can extract from it later. So a lot of our reflections are going to ask us, like, look back, what did you learn? What did you see, especially in the gratitude? What are some themes in your gratitude? How are you feeling about your habits? You know, what did you learn? The more you put in, the more you'll be able to extract when you look back, right? So that's our final step, setting up our practice. And I hope that these videos have been helpful. And like I said, we'll get some other videos that are like dialing really into, you know, each component and talking about those. But for now, I really, when you're first getting your book, I hope that these videos have been helpful. And when we meet one-on-one, because each book comes with a call, you can bring your questions about, you know, I sat down to do A, B, and C, and I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. That's what I'm here for. So thank you for listening and watching, and I hope that this process is fun and informative and just kind of unlocks a lot of layers for you in your life. And I can't wait to meet you. And yeah, so stay tuned for more.